Chains of Fate. The twin moons of Meridian cast long shadows across the barren wasteland as the transport convoy rumbled over cracked terrain. Inside the rear vehicle, Thora winced as the restraints bit into her violet skin. 3 days in these, chains had left raw marks on her wrists and ankles, but physical discomfort was the least of her concerns. It was the proximity to the beast that troubled her most. The Nexus creature lay sedated beside her, its massive form rising and falling with labored breaths. Even unconscious, it radiated power and menace, 8 feet of muscle, armor, and primal fury. Its scaled hide shifted between deep blues and purples depending on the light, almost matching her own skin tone. A cruel irony. "Prisoner check," announced the guard, his voice distorted through his helmet. He rapped his stun baton against the barrier separating the prisoner compartment from the driver's cabin. "Still alive in there?" Thora raised her head, her silver eyes reflecting the dim red emergency lights. "For now," she replied, her melodic accent lilting despite her exhaustion. The guard chuckled. "Better hope it stays that way. Commander Vex wants you both at the facility intact." He peered through the barrier at the sedated beast. "Though why they want to keep that thing alive is beyond me." Thora knew exactly why. The Hegemony Corporation had spent billions developing the Nexus creatures, biological weapons designed for planetary pacification. The beast possessed unparalleled destructive capability but proved impossible to control, until they discovered the Lumari, her people, could form neural bonds with the creatures through their natural empathic abilities. What had once been her people's greatest gift was now their greatest curse. The transport jolted suddenly, throwing Thora against her restraints. The beast stirred beside her, a low rumble emanating from its chest. Panic flared in her chest if it woke now in such close quarters. "Status report," the guard barked into his comm unit. "Perimeter drone detected something moving to the east," came the reply. "Probably just local wildlife." Thora closed her eyes, extending her senses outward through the neural implant forcibly installed at the base of her skull. The Hegemony's scientists had modified her natural empathic abilities, focusing them like a weapon. She could now reach further, touch minds with greater precision, all to better control their monsters. She sensed something, someone, watching from the ridgeline. A consciousness unlike the cold, mechanical minds of the Hegemony soldiers. This presence burned bright, intense, wounded yet resolute. Human Damon Reed had not intended to play hero today. 8 years in exile on this forgotten moon had taught him one critical lesson. Survival meant keeping your head down and your nose clean. Meridian was where disgraced soldiers and political exiles came to disappear. And disappear he had, until now. Through his tactical scope, he observed the convoy, 4 armored vehicles traversing the black sand flats, headed toward the Hegemony research facility in the northern mountains. Standard prisoner transport formation except for the unusual cargo. "What the hell are you?" he muttered, adjusting the focus to get a better view of the violet-skinned woman chained to what appeared to be a sedated beast. Her species wasn't familiar to him, and he'd encountered most known sentience during his time with the Commonwealth peacekeepers. His hand unconsciously moved to the neural interface at the nape of his neck, a reminder of his former life as a peacekeeper operative. The biomechanical implant had once connected him to an array of tactical systems and combat enhancements. Now it was dormant, deactivated when he was discharged and exiled. Damon lowered the scope, considering his options. This wasn't his problem. He had enough troubles without antagonizing the Hegemony, the most powerful corporation in this sector. He'd come to these flats to hunt desert hares, not to start a war. And yet, he couldn't shake the image of the woman's face through the quiet dignity despite her chains, the defiance in her silver eyes. "You're a damn fool, Reed," he told himself, already unslinging his rifle. The first explosion caught everyone by surprise. The lead vehicle erupted in flames, flipping onto its side and blocking the convoy's path. Thora was thrown forward, her restraints preventing her from bracing herself. The Nexus beast beside her stirred more forcefully, its sedation wearing off faster than expected. "Ambush." She heard the guards shouting, followed by the staccato report of pulse rifles. The second and third explosions came in quick succession, disabling the escort vehicles on either side. Through the barrier, Thora saw the guard reach for the controls, to the beast's restraint system, a fail-safe detonation that would kill them both rather than risk the creature falling into enemy hands. Before he could activate it, the barrier shattered as something punched through from outside, a focused energy beam that left a smoldering hole in the guard's chest. He collapsed, his finger inches from the detonation switch. Thora's ears rang from the explosions and weapons fire. Through the smoke and chaos, a figure appeared at the transport's rear door, forcing it open with mechanical efficiency. A human male, tall and weathered, with close-cropped dark hair peppered with gray. His face bore the hard lines of someone who had seen too much combat, too many horrors. Most striking were his eyes, one natural brown, the other a cybernetic replacement glowing a faint blue. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice a graveled whisper as he surveyed her restraints. "Who are you?" Thora demanded, trying to keep her voice steady as the beast beside her shifted more aggressively. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" "Name's Damon Reed," he replied, producing a bypass tool and working on her restraints. "And no, I rarely do, but I know injustice when I see it." "You don't understand," she warned, glancing nervously at the Nexus beast. "I'm chained to this creature for a reason. It's dangerous. So am I." The restraints on her wrists clicked. "Open. Now, we have about 2 minutes before reinforcements arrive. That thing," he nodded toward the beast. "Is it going to eat me if I release it too?" Thora felt the familiar pressure behind her eyes as the neural implant activated, connecting her consciousness to the beast's primal mind. Through their forced bond, she sensed its confusion, pain, and building rage. "Not if I can help it," she said, uncertainty evident in her voice. "But I make no promises." Damon hesitated only a moment before moving to release the creature's restraints as well. "I've survived worse odds." As the final restraint fell away, the Nexus beast's eyes snapped open, multifaceted orbs of amber that seemed to glow from within. It rose to its full height, dwarfing both of them in the confined space. Its massive head swung toward Damon, jaws parting to reveal rows of serrated teeth. Thora stepped between them, her hand raised toward the creature. The neural implant at the base of her skull pulsed with light as she established connection. Pain lanced through her mind. Controlling the beast always hurt, but she pushed through it, imposing her will upon its savage instincts. "Easy," she whispered, more to herself than to the creature. "He's not our enemy." The beast growled low and threatening but remained in place. Its consciousness pressed against hers, wild and alien, yet with an undercurrent of intelligence she hadn't noticed. Before Damon watched the exchange with fascination. "Impressive trick." "Not a trick," Thora corrected, sweat beading on her brow from the mental exertion. "A cage. For both of us." Outside, the sounds of approaching vehicles echoed across the flats. Reinforcements, just as Damon had predicted. "Time to go," he said, offering his hand. "Unless you prefer hegemony hospitality." Thora took one last look at the transport that had been her prison. Then she placed her slender hand in his calloused one. "Lead the way, human." The Nexus beast followed. As they fled into the wastes, its thunderous footfalls a counterpoint to their own hurried steps. Behind them, the night sky lit up with searchlights as hegemony forces converged on the ambush site. Damon led them toward a narrow canyon, one of many that crisscrossed this region of Meridian. His movements were precise, practiced, betraying years of tactical training. "There's a cave system ahead," he explained between breaths. "We can lose them in the tunnels." "The beast won't fit in narrow passages," Thora warned, feeling the creature's growing anxiety through their link. Damon glanced back at the massive creature loping behind them. "Then we improvise." He tapped the neural interface at the base of his skull, a gesture that seemed unconscious. "I'm good at that." As they reached the canyon entrance, Thora felt something change in their pursuers' intensity. The hegemony wasn't just sending security forces, they were deploying something, else something worse. "They're activating the other Nexus beasts," she said. the color draining from her face. "They're coming for us." Damon's expression hardened. "Then we'd better run faster." Together they plunged into the darkness of the canyon, guided only by Damon's helmet light and the faint bioluminescence of Thora's skin. The Nexus beast followed, its massive form somehow navigating the increasingly narrow passage. None of them saw the small drone tracking their movement from high above, transmitting their position back to Hegemony Command. Liberation's price dawn broke over Meridian's craggy mountains, painting the barren landscape in hues of copper and gold. Deep within the cave system, Damon kindled a small heat source, careful to minimize emissions that might be detected by hegemony scanners. The faint blue glow illuminated their temporary shelter, a natural cavern with a freshwater spring bubbling from the rock wall. Thora sat across from him, her violet skin shimmering with subtle bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her breathing. The Nexus beast rested nearby, its massive form curled protectively around the perimeter of their camp. Its amber eyes remained half open, ever vigilant. "Your turn," Damon said, breaking the silence. "I've told you how I ended up exiled on this rock. What's your story?" Thora's silver eyes studied him carefully. Trust didn't come easily after what she'd endured, but this human had risked everything to free her. She owed him some explanation. "My
name is Thoravex Ally," she began, her melodic accent more pronounced in her exhaustion.
"I was a harmonist on my homeworld of Lumaria, what your people might call a spiritual guide or healer. My people are natural empaths. We sense and influence emotional states." She touched the neural implant at the base of her skull, its metallic surface gleaming in the dim light. "The hegemony discovered our abilities could be weaponized. With the right modifications, we could control their Nexus beasts, creatures engineered for warfare but too unstable to direct through conventional means. So they abducted you," Damon concluded, his expression darkening. "They called it recruitment," Thora said bitterly. "They came with contracts and promises of cultural exchange. By the time we understood their true intentions, they had already established a foothold on Lumaria. Those who resisted were made examples of." The Nexus beast stirred, sensing her distress. Its consciousness pressed against hers. Not the wild rage she'd grown accustomed to, but something almost comforting. Since their escape, the creature's mind had felt different, more coherent. "And what about your companion?" Damon nodded toward the beast. Thora's expression softened slightly. "The Nexus creatures are not natural beings. The hegemony created them by splicing genetic material from multiple predator species, then enhanced them with cybernetic components and neural amplifiers." She looked at the beast with a mixture of pity and respect. "They were designed to be perfect weapons, mindless destroyers that could be deployed against enemy forces," then recalled. "Except they couldn't control them," Damon guessed. "No. The creatures developed a form of collective consciousness, rebelling against their programming. The hegemony's solution was to use my people as living control mechanisms." Her voice wavered. "They bind us to the beasts through neural interfaces, forcing us to suppress their will with our own. If we resist, pain modulators activate. If we try to remove the implants, they detonate." Damon's cybernetic eye glowed brighter as anger flashed across his face. "Sounds like the hegemony hasn't changed its tactics since my time. You mentioned you were a peacekeeper," Thora said. "What happened?" His hand unconsciously moved to the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. "I believed the propaganda, that we were bringing order and justice to the frontier worlds. Then, I was deployed to Callisto's Reach during the mining colony uprising." "I've heard of this," Thora said quietly. "The massacre." Damon nodded grimly. "We were told the colonists had acquired military-grade weapons, that they posed an imminent threat to hegemony interests. My squad was sent in first, supposedly for reconnaissance, actually as bait." He stared into the dim blue light of the heater. There were no weapons, just starving miners and their families, blockaded after demanding fair pay. When I refused to fire on civilians, my commander activated the override code in my neural interface. took control of my body like a puppet. Thora felt the echo of his horror and shame through her empathic senses. You couldn't stop it. No. But afterward, I managed to expose what happened. The hegemony couldn't execute a decorated peacekeeper without raising questions, so they deactivated my combat enhancements and exiled me here instead. His mismatched eyes met hers. Best they could do was make sure no one believed me. The Nexus beast suddenly raised its head, a low growl rumbling from its chest. Both Damon and Thora tensed, listening intently. In the distance, barely audible, came the sound of movement. Not the heavy tread of patrol units, but something else. They've released the other beasts, Thora whispered, fear evident in her voice. How many? Damon asked, already gathering his equipment. Thora closed her eyes, extending her empathic senses outward. Through her neural implant, she could feel the other Nexus creatures, their hunger, their rage, their driving purpose. 3, she finally said, all hunting us. There's something different about them. Their minds feel more directed. Can you control them like you do yours? Thora shook her head. Each beast is bonded to a specific controller. I can sense them, but not influence them. Damon checked his weapons, a pulse rifle and sidearm, both showing dangerously low energy, reserves. Then we keep moving. There's an abandoned mining outpost about 6 clicks north. Might find supplies there, maybe a communicator. To call for help? Thora asked skeptically. Who would come? A grim smile touched Damon's lips. Not all of us peacekeepers agreed with the hegemony's methods. Some went independent, formed resistance cells if I can reach them. A bone-chilling roar echoed through the cave system, much closer than expected. The Nexus beast beside Thora rose to its full height, answering with a roar of its own. Through their connection, she felt something unexpected. Not just territorial aggression, but protective intent. Time to go, Damon said, extending his hand to help her up. They moved swiftly through the winding tunnels, guided by Damon's knowledge of the terrain. The Nexus beast followed, occasionally hurrying ahead to scout, then returning to their side. Its behavior continued to puzzle Thora. It was acting with a level of intelligence and cooperation she'd never observed in these creatures before. They emerged from the cave system into a narrow valley bordered by steep cliff faces. The twin suns of Meridian had fully risen, their harsh light betraying the barren desolation of the landscape. In the distance, the abandoned mining outpost sprawled across the valley floor, its structures partially reclaimed by the desert. Stay low and move fast, Damon instructed. We're exposed here. They had covered half the distance to the outpost when Thora felt a sudden spike of alarm through her connection with the beast. It stopped abruptly, its head swinging toward the ridge to their left. Too late, Damon spotted the ambush. A sleek, altered Nexus beast, smaller than Thora's but faster, leapt from the rocks above. Its hide was midnight black with cybernetic enhancements gleaming along its spine and limbs. Behind it stood a Lumari controller, her violet skin paler than Thora's, her eyes vacant as the neural implant at her skull forced her compliance. Thora Vexalai. The controller spoke, her voice flat and emotionless. Commander Vex demands your return. The prototype must not be damaged. Prototype? Damon glanced at Thora's beast, understanding dawning. That's why yours is different. Thora nodded grimly. The next generation, designed for greater intelligence and adaptability. She stepped forward, addressing the controller. Lyra, fight the implant. You can resist them. The vacant-eyed Lumari showed no recognition. Surrender the prototype or face termination. Damon raised his pulse rifle. Not happening. The black Nexus beast launched forward with frightening speed. Damon fired, the energy pulse striking its shoulder but barely slowing its charge. Before it could reach them, Thora's beast intercepted, the two massive creatures colliding with earth-shaking force. What followed was chaos. The beasts fought with primal fury, claws tearing at armored hide, jaws snapping for vulnerable points. Through her neural link, Thora felt her beast's determination and intelligence directing its attacks with surprising strategy. Help me reach Lyra, Thora shouted to Damon over the roars of the battling creatures. If I can break her connection to the beast, it might give us a chance. Damon nodded, providing covering fire as they circled the brutal combat. The controller remained motionless, her focus entirely on maintaining control of her beast through the neural implant. When they were close enough, Thora reached out with her empathic abilities, pushing past the hegemony's technological barriers to touch Lyra's consciousness. What she found nearly broke her heart. Fragments of the woman Lyra had once been, buried beneath layers of conditioning and control. Lyra, remember who you are, Thora pleaded, both aloud and through their mental connection. Remember Lumaria, the crystal falls where we studied harmonics. Remember your strength.